going to talk about some of that selling and start to finish of what it looks like to sell a home. There is, again, trying to find a list agent, and make sure that you're going over those questions with them when you're asking detailed questions, that they know the market, they know the area, the value of your home, and that they are, what can they do for you, that they have a marketing plan set up for you to get your home sold for either the most amount of money and the quickest time. There's also, we'll sit down with you and talk about your value, not only your value, but within the neighborhood and comps that are surrounding within a half-mile radius. Any updates that are on your home, it's great for you to have a list. If you have done any updates as far as a roof, remodel, things like that, because those will affect the value. On the appraisal process, the appraiser typically looks within the neighborhood first and then goes out about a half mile to 2 miles depending on where you live if you're more rural. We also want to make sure that we're pricing that home to sell right. So if we price too high, it can sit on the market longer, and then we're doing price reductions. If we price it right, we're reaching 90% of the market for those buyers, and our ticket range is to be the first 2 weeks on the market is when we have the highest activity. So pricing it right is a very, very big part of our process. So once we've had that done, then we will walk through the house and talk about what you can do to get it ready to be listed. So staging is important, decluttering is important, and we want to make sure that your house is highlighted in the best way possible. With that being said, we want to make sure that, large clusters of family photos on the wall, murals, things like that you have, get removed and depersonalize the home some. You don't have to have all of them removed, but at least we depersonalize it so that someone else can envision themselves living in that home. And just like I said, whenever a buyer walks in, they usually make their decision within the first 5 seconds of walking in that house. So we want to make sure that curb appeal looks really good, and when they walk in that home, it is very inviting and welcoming to them, because they'll make that decision fairly quickly. Then it's time to start getting your house ready to be put on the market. So, make sure it's photo ready, touch up, paint, anything as far as exterior that needs to be taken care of, wood rot, things like that. We want to make sure all that's done and taken care of possible before we list it and take our photos. Then we go in and we schedule our photographer and our social media content, get everything set up for it to go live, start marketing it to be ready to be presented to the public. Once it goes live and on the market, we start scheduling our showings. I typically tell my clients to be ready to have their house clean. It's easier said than done, I get, especially if you have little ones. So you just want to make sure that we organize the house properly so that it's an easy cleanup and you're not having to frantically run around trying to get your house deep cleaned beforehand. Doing easy cleanups throughout the day probably, and organizing it. We typically will ask for about 2 hours. If you do have littles, we'll ask for a 2-hour notification, if at all possible, before a showing, and scheduling that so that you're not having to feel rushed. And a lot of those are just having that conversation with your agent and figuring out what your needs are in the listing process, and also advising as to what the public's needs are in showing. We want to make sure it's easily accessible and able to be shown. Then once we have a contract on an offer, that's when we start negotiating that offer with the buyer and buyer's agent, and we'll come to terms, look at all the numbers, make sure it's a right fit for you, and based on what that looks like, we have a signed contract, we're ready to go. That earnest money again will get turned in to the title company, and we start the process of getting appraisals, inspections, and everything ordered from the buy side. That is, and as an agent, as a listing agent, we're typically present on all of those for the appraisal. Most of the time I meet the appraiser at the home to go over the comps if we're a little concerned in that area. I will also be there on your behalf for the inspection period, and most agents are, so that they can relay anything that comes up very quickly and easily to you and or a service person that's going to come out and do the work. Once that all is taken care of, then we start getting the repairs completed after inspections for that TRR, make sure everything's taken care of, and there we'll help organize and arrange all of those. and we'll start sending over the receipts to the buyer and buyer's agent once those are completed. And then we'll have title, everything completed from the title and lender side. Once we get that clear to close, then we are ready to sign the papers and have your check sent to you or wired however you would like it, and you've closed on your home. And those keys typically get sent over to the buyer the day of. We no longer have to close the same day with buyers and sellers. Sellers can actually pre-sign ahead of the buyers, which makes it easy so that if you don't want to have to worry about the same day and you're closing on another property or maybe moving out of state, it makes it easier that you don't have to be present on the same day that the buyer is closing. And so it's happy closing and celebrating that we've closed on your home sale. Again, if you guys have any questions, feel free to give us a shout.